Welcome to In the Room, where we explore the elusive world of casting for film, TV, and commercials. Join us as we interview directors, writers, producers, and actors, taking a deep dive into their experiences with casting and how the ultimate decisions are made in bringing a story to the screen. Get an inside look at casting and find out what really goes on in the room.
Frank mentioned that you served together with Marines?
Infantry, 141st Regiment.
I know you hear this all the time, but thank you for your service.
Well, I don't hear that all the time, but I was proud to serve my country. I don't want to be a member of just any club. I want to play here.
I got to consider our other members, and they are just not used to seeing a Mexican on the golf course.
I work in a bakery shop from 12 to 9.
Fetch, ball boy.
It's not even a tough shot, Felipe.
Oh, yeah? Carter says you can't do better.
How about that?
Joe.
Where'd you learn to hit like that? How would you boys like to be the first members of the San Felipe High School golf team?
Us.
They asked me to join the new golf team today.
Golf? Gonna bring your sombrero anyway, man. Whenever you're invited to a gringo party, you're either the entertainment or the help.
Let me ask you something. Are they any good? Nope.
But I don't want to be a babysitter to a bunch of juvenile delinquents who just want to get out of detention. You boys built all this.
Yes, Mr. Mitchell.
Sorry, boys. When we spoke on the phone, I assumed you were American.
Well, you assume right. Now, these teams, they've had access to a lot of things you boys haven't. But the best golfer isn't the one with the fanciest clubs. It's the one who can summon the will to keep swinging when things get tough. And that's you boys.
People need to see us as more than just caddies and cannon fodder.
You know, that's just life. Sometimes you land on the green, sometimes you're in the bunker, but you always play it as it lies.
Okay.
We got a bio here to butter you up.
Oh, God. Okay, great.
Okay, so here's where I say a bunch of amazing
Wonderful
things about you. Did you get this off the
I
interwebs?
Some of it's from your site and some of it's from the internet, so there could be some false truths here.
Okay, good.
So,
Okay, we'll see how the AI did.
so when he first started playing Elvis,
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
So today we're here with Richard Robichaux. Richard is a seasoned actor known for his roles in acclaimed productions such as George Papas in Disney Plus's Big Shot, alongside John Stamos and Yvette Nicole Brown, and upcoming features like The Long Game and Richard Linklater's Hitman. His extensive credits include appearances in notable films such as Ocean's 8 and Where'd You Go, Bernadette with Cate Blanchett, and his work in Boyhood, which garnered 6 Academy Award nominations and won the Golden Globe for Best Picture. Beyond his film work, Richard has a rich background in theater, having performed at prestigious venues such as the Shakespeare Theater in Washington, D.C., Yale Repertory Theater, and Mark Taper Forum. Richard is not only an accomplished actor, but also a dedicated educator and advocate for arts education. He has taught at esteemed institutions like Yale, Juilliard, and UCSD, where he held the Arthur and Molly Wagner Endowed Chair in Acting. His passion for teaching extends to keynote addresses and master classes at various conferences and universities nationwide. As a member of the Television Academy, SAG-AFTRA, Actors Equity, and the Stage Directors and Choreographers Society, Richard is deeply involved in the entertainment industry. He also serves as a judge for the College Television Awards presented by the Emmys. currently directing The Thin Place.
I don't know if that's current. Is that current?
It was last fall.
Last fall. Okay, that was last fall.
At the Zach Theater in Austin, Richard is also the director of the Robichaux Studio, offering coaching in life, art, and business. Additionally, he holds the position of professor of acting at Texas State University.
My man done some shit.
Right?
I mean, that's busy. That's busy. That's busy. When you hear it all like that, I mean,
it's like, what have you
really
done with your life,
You know,
Richard?
my wife, one of the best, having a spouse who is an artist, you know, my wife is an artist too, but it takes a specific kind of partner to have your partner be an artist. And because we get beat up so much, you know, I mean, by the business or the industry or whatever. And I remember one time I was complaining and I'm just sad or this, and nobody loves me and nobody likes me and nobody wants to hire me, et cetera, et cetera. She was like, can you just stop for a second and just tell me, like, what'd you do last year? Like just the last 12 months. And I went, well, I don't know. I mean, I did that. And I started kind of naming a few things. And then she very beautifully said, you're pretty fancy.
Yes.
And it was such a loving, good partner to be like, slow your roll, brother. You're pretty fancy.
Yeah.
But it's so hard because we're all, you know this, the two of you, about like the work kind of never stops because when it does, it really stops. So we never stop.
Yeah.
And I forget sometimes just how busy I am.
Yeah.
Like just this week alone.
I mean, even
I'm like how busy
a lot of
I
times
am.
when people are on set working, they're worried about their next audition. I'm like, you got a job. Like, enjoy the job.
And you know, and part of that, I'll tell you what I think that is. This is from my role as an educator. I think that's part of because the nature of our work is our imagination. So we are the kind of people that could book a commercial and our imagination has us winning a Tony Award, like because of it. Right? Isn't that true? Only actors do that. We're like, wait, did I get that Kellogg's commercial? Well, and then John's going to see the Kellogg's commercial, and then so and so, and then he's going to cast me in this movie, and then when that movie goes out, I'm going to get a play, and then I'm going to get a Tony. Oh my God, I'm going to get a Tony Award. And you're like, no, you booked a commercial. Yeah. You have one day on a commercial, but the very nature of what makes us good as actors, there's also a shadow side to it. It can really beat us up.
It's also, I got work. Where's my next job coming from?
I know you do, and you think.
But I also notice when people come in the room, when we used to see people in the room, it's like, oh, he's got some work going on. He's got a lot of confidence.
That's it.
Yeah, hold on. We're off to the races. Do you still do that?
I still do that. Well, I do. I daydream. You know, it was what I want to call it, and I think it's healthy for actors to daydream. I do have certain daydreams. I'm shooting a show right now, and and I have daydreams about that show, like that I don't force; they arrive. Do you see?
Yeah.
But I do think that the instrument, not to get too fancy, but the instrument, you know, the actor's instrument is a sensitive instrument. So we're the kind of people you can watch a movie with, and we cry, we jump, we're scared, we love it. Because we just drop in so fast. We're like, I believe it. There's a Hogwarts. Sign me up, right?
Yeah.
And I think so. I allow those daydreams to sort of happen. I'll catch myself sometimes if they become. I go, oh, there I am. There's my actor kind of creating a second season already.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're only in the third episode. I'm like, okay, Robichaux.
This is only a callback.
I'm like, exactly. And then I'm vacationing with the star or whatever.
Yeah.
You're like, no. This is it's just a read. So I think there's a healthy dose of daydreaming that's required in being an actor, and then you just have to watch it that it doesn't become delusional.
Yeah.
But I think it's required.
We're so off to the races. Normally we start like from the beginning when you were a child and you're first born and all that stuff. But like I'm so in it. I don't think we've ever had an actor actually in the room. Ironically, they've all been on Zoom.
No, we've had Austin Amelia, which was a student of yours.
Yeah, you're right.
Austin was a student of mine. Yeah.
And I guess Macon, but he was here in a director capacity.
Austin, who's a great actor.
Okay, maybe I'm just starstruck by you.
Which you guys worked together.
You ever, we did. We played
on the long game. It's coming out this
Husband
Friday.
Wife. Yeah, it's a long game. Yes. It opens April 12th.
And Richard taught me a little bit about golf.
Yeah.
in Colombia.
Yeah, incredible.
Have you ever been down and out of it and out of work long enough to not daydream or
that's when
to have your instrument get muted?
Yes,
in a sense,
and that's whenever the force is used for evil, right?
Yeah.
The daydreaming force is used for evil, and that was called 2023. It was literally last year.
Really,
because of the strike. I am very open about that. It's the longest, because I think it's important that people know how work is. It's the longest I've ever gone without being on set since 1999. Now, there are two ways to look at this. I looked at both of them, both ways, right?
Heavily.
You know what I mean? I was cranky, and I tried to turn the ship around as well. One was, oh my God, the business divorced me and nobody told me. And I can't believe I haven't worked this long. I've never not worked this long.
right?
And then, do I still know how to do it? Do they still want me? Is it just, it's just over? Have I just reached an age where it's like, okay, and now you've kind of like, they're just like, thank you, we've seen enough. Those things start happening. Then also it's financial, which is very real, where you're like, ooh, wow, because then you're living off cash.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, so wow, we really could be nice to have a job soon.
That's legit.
And
like,
so-
this is what I do for money.
Yes. And then you're like, oh, wow, I might not have health insurance
Right.
for the first time since
Decades.
1999.
Yeah.
So those were real things that were happening literally just last year for the first time.
Even the pandemic and COVID?
Even during pandemic and during the pandemic and during COVID, I was on a series.
Okay.
So that was only scary because I was only getting like partial salary for like 7 months.
Yeah, talk about getting lucky.
And so it was Disney that was Disney Plus, that was the show Big Shot. And they very generously said, okay, we're going to pay you a sliver of your normal rate monthly, just to basically cover your expenses. And then also there's a business side for them. They also wanted to hold me.
Yep.
So they're like, stay, don't book anything else for the show. But so that was enough to get us through.
Did you not take, did you not just think, well, when the strike is over, I'll go back to work?
I did. That's the other thing, is that I had to do some self-talk, and then I had to coach myself a little bit. And again, my wife, Natalie, is helpful. She's like, it doesn't make any sense. And then I'll tell, and for any actor that's listening, I will say this, that this is something that became very clear to me. This mantra sort of that kind of came to me just probably 2 years ago. When we moved to Austin, because we left California and moved to Austin, which was also a big risk. And I just stopped worrying about the details, because I've been in the business long enough to be like, I've never gotten the details right, ever.
And when you say details, kind of explain what that...
The future.
Yeah.
Like I've never been able to actually predict that project. Like, I thought that project was going to be so great.
Yep.
I thought this director was going to be so great.
Right.
I've just never been able to actually accurately predict anything.
Right.
And so what I do know, and I can really say this for certainty, is that my future includes work in television, film, and theater. I just don't know how. But I do know that that's what my future includes. It will include work in those three areas. I just know it, because it always has.
I know,
and
what you
that
mean
is
by
enough
that.
for me to go. Not to get super technical, but or like too in the weeds. But there's this Emily Dickinson. When Emily Dickinson was sending out poems to publishers, they were like, first of all, you're a woman.
Yeah.
And second of all, we don't understand these poems. Good luck. Like all these rejection letters. And she very generously wrote back to a publisher saying, thank you for, fortunately the publisher, no one remembers that person's name. We remember Emily Dickinson's name. So she won in the end. But she wrote him back a very generous letter saying, thank you for reading it. However, I think there is something here. And there's a line in that letter that I love so much, that just says, the sailor cannot see the north, but knows the needle can. That she just knew, listen, I can't see where I'm going exactly, but I have a compass inside me that knows something.
Right.
It can. And I think if you're an artist, we really depend on that compass more than the civilian population.
Yes.
We have gone through dry spells. We've gone through good days, bad days. We've gone through money and no money. We've gone through all these things. And yet we just keep going, well, I'm just following this needle because it keeps pointing this way.
Yeah.
That takes courage. I think that's the only way to have longevity in the industry is that you've got to be able to, first of all, you have to know there's a needle.
I thought it was a disorder for a long time.
Exactly. But actually it's the imprint, it's the acorn just saying, no, John, you're an oak.
Yeah.
That's just what we are.
I say all the time, I go, as worried and as anxious as I am right now, I know it's going to be okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because ultimately it has been.
Yep.
Ultimately,
every problem, and I say this to people all the time, I go, every problem you've had up to date, it's worked itself out, right?
Yeah, there's a question that I love. I ask my students this question sometimes. I'll go, okay, what was your problem 3 problems ago? And it just gives them perspective of like, oh yeah, what was my problem?
Yeah, I have no idea.
I don't even remember that thing that like kept me up at night 3 weeks ago. You don't even remember because you've moved on to your new problem.
So as an actor and an artist, as you've lived in that skin and you soak up your impressions and your influences of the world and humanity and you express it back, have you noticed a change in the conversation? Like I feel like I wanted to express for the people, and for some reason I feel like that conversation has changed, and now I feel like with social media everybody expresses.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of feel like a little bit like, well, why? Almost like I don't have anything new to say. It's all being said. It's just this cacophony of everybody expressing that makes me sort of feel like my gifts aren't necessarily needed in a way.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, I don't. I hate that for you.
I'm sorry. TMI on my part.
No, but I don't.
Like,
I mean, I hear you. I do hear you. And I think that can sometimes happen to me when I see a great work of art or, a great piece of acting or a great album is dropped or something like this. And I go, what am I even doing? Like, why am I even trying?
Yeah.
Now, what does become challenging is how sort of the fast grab of fame, which is what I think you're talking about. That's the social media stuff where it's so fast and it's so quick and like, hey, I just wanted to show you what I was having for lunch and did I get any clicks on this and this. And I think the danger has happened is that people have equated that with art or acting.
Yes.
And that's a false equivalency. It's not. That's really what I would call hotel art.
Yeah.
So it's not museum art. What we're doing, hopefully, is museum art, not hotel art. Hotel art, by its very nature, is meant to not be contemplated.
Right.
You're supposed to go into the hotel and not have to contemplate.
Right.
That's
anything.
Not really even notice it.
It's supposed to see it, go, oh, cool photo, and then that's it.
Wash
which
over
I
you.
think is what social media really is. It's like, oh, I had that thing and I saw that thing and it was kind of alive in me for about a second or two and then now it's gone. Whereas hopefully we, in films and TV and theater, those memories will last and last and last in the same way that a great painting will for you, that you keep going back. There's several paintings in museums around the country that I keep going back to again and again.
Yeah.
I keep that I go,
or just stick with you.
Oh, I love that painting. Love this painting. I love that painting. I got, that. That's why it's not in a hotel.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess I feel like sometimes like the nature of like the turnover and what we're being asked to produce is like, it's so like fast and furious and that we're not like delving into the real meat and intricacies.
I agree with you completely. And I got a little nervous around, I just got on social media not too long ago. I mean, just a couple of years ago, and I still haven't done very many posts. I mean, it's not like it's not my strong suit.
Yeah.
But because of work, I mean, I'm definitely asked. They're like, you need to do this. You need to do this. You need to post this. And so I'm just like, yeah, I can I can understand that. I can see its value. I can see its
Yeah.
value.
But there are people on social media that are doing really cool stuff too.
Oh, totally.
you know,
That I listen
but it's
to.
just so much. There's so much crowd there that it's hard to find.
And that I have found, like I have, and that I found and I followed. I mean, my Instagram feed is so funny. Like if when you look at like what the advertisements are, I was like, oh wow, it really did figure me out because it's like running, gardening, golf, baseball, and like acting and museums. I was like, oh my God, this is like my obituary.
Well, so-
it's like, oh my God, it's everything that I do. I mean, it's like it figured me out immediately.
What's crazy is I'll send like,
and then I love it.
I'll send reels back and forth with somebody,
Yes.
and then I start getting my algorithm starts getting me in that conversation that I'm
Yes.
sending back. Yeah, it's hyper aware of what you're doing.
It really is. And then, but it does tell you about yourself in a way that you're like, oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, I guess that is what is. And it has helped all those areas of my life that not like I wouldn't have researched.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I just wouldn't have done that because the kind of books I read, I wouldn't be like, oh, let me get that book. And for that, I really love it.
So knowing yourself, when did you know this about yourself? When did you start feeling like an actor? Like, were you little?
I was very little.
Yeah.
And I was.
Hold on 1 second. I want to say, are you from Channelview?
Yes.
I'm from Baytown. What? I know.
Oh my God.
My whole family's from Channelview.
Oh my God, that's
my grandfather,
the mall.
my mom.
The mall was in Baytown,
Yeah.
John. I mean, that was like the big deal.
Yeah.
We're some East Side folks.
Yep.
Yeah. It's pretty rough.
Robert E. Lee.
Yes. I mean, that was, anytime you say you're from Houston, right? My wife, who's from South Carolina, learned this. She's like, we'll be in New York or in LA or whatever. And they'll be like, oh, Richard, you're from Houston, I hear. No, I'm from Houston. And so then they go, oh, where?
Yep.
And then I'll say Channelview, and my wife says, and they all go, oh.
Totally. Yeah.
And
so I mean, I grew up. My dad is a singer, and I grew up at Gillies. Like I grew up in
that's
Pasadena.
incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, that's incredible. Well, then you'll understand this particularly. My mother was 16 when she was pregnant with me, and you couldn't be showing or pregnant in school then.
Right.
So she denied an education at that point. So, and I say this to say, when she talks about where I am now, she'll say, oh, baby, you an astronaut. You ain't an actor. And I just love that.
That's amazing.
It's the sweetest thing.
That is so amazing.
Isn't that the most perfect
Yes.
thing, though?
Yeah.
And she's such a kind of a poet in her own way. She's so funny. But, yeah, my dad is so proud and is so, because they're like, wow.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, in many ways that really helped me. I mean, at first I wanted to be the ice cream man because that seemed like the job.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then now that I look back, I was like, there was a performative part to it, right?
Sure.
I mean, the ice cream man is like, hey, it's me.
I got it instantly. Like, that's the famous guy in the neighborhood.
You got a theme song.
There's an artist.
Everybody comes to your show.
Exactly. Everybody runs to the show.
Yeah.
And then, then I think I got old enough to take like a deep, hard look at the ice cream man and was like, doesn't look like things are going great
Yeah.
at the ice cream man's house.
So
that same song.
Yeah, I know, exactly. But this is like one of those, unfortunately, I'm 50. How old am I? 51. But I'm 51 years old. Yeah. It's very good to be 50 now.
When's your birthday?
December.
Okay, July.
So I'm 51 now. And so I've actually been around long enough to start to see the patterns of like, oh, and so I have all these like stories that sort of like circle back and I go, oh, that are really beautiful, like really beautiful moments of grace in my artist career. And one of them is, I loved TV as a kid. And I loved The Jeffersons. I loved Good Times. I loved Three's Company. I loved The Love Boat. I just
Eight is
loved
Enough.
Eight is Enough, Dynasty.
Yes.
I remember like, I'd never heard classical music before. And so Dynasty, that, and I'm a big classical music fan. Dynasty's music by Bill Conti. I remember watching like, who did the music?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like I was that kind of kid. I was like, oh, those trumpets. I wanted to know more about.
Yeah.
So I'm watching the Jeffersons and I'm like crisscross applesauce sitting in front of the TV. God knows how old I was. Very, 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 very young. Maybe 9, 8, 9. And it was a particular episode that I guess just cracked me up. Like I just thought, oh, this is just the funniest thing ever. So I decided I was going to watch the credits because I wanted to see who I was like, who makes this show up? This is great. So then it said makeup, and it said like Kathleen Edwards or whoever it was. And I went, oh, makeup. So she's the one who makes this up, which is so Channel View. Right? So I was like, boy, Kathleen Edwards makes up Jeffersons. She is good. How can she make all that up?
Almost like acting sitcom.
It is. How come? So then cut to, I don't know, God, decades later, and on Big Shot, Marla Gibbs does she came and did a guest star. And I got to meet Marla Gibbs. So the boy who was watching the TV and watching that person, Marla Gibbs, who was on The Jeffersons famously, I suddenly went this great Grand Canyon distance to being inside it with her. And I got to tell her that story.
That's amazing.
I mean, that's just grace in a way that art is one of those ways, just like athletics, just like education, just like nature or travel, is one of those ways that you can step out of your socioeconomic cycle, right? And that clearly was my way of like what changed the course of my life, which then now has changed the course of my children's life, and all those who will come after. But that's when I started. I wanted to do that, and then my dad was really, really supportive of me. He's a smart, funny, but he's a good honky tonker. And there was a club in Houston called Cooters, where the big Mets Astros brawl happened before the '86 World Series. But they used to have a gong show, and I was in the 4th grade, and he said he used to go out. That's where he'd go out. He'd party in Houston, And so he said, "Yeah, I think you should do it. You should do some comedy. You could do that, or whatever, And so I did. And in the 4th grade, I went and did stand up at this nightclub, and the Derrick Dolls, who were the cheerleaders for the Houston Oilers, were the judges. And I had a little suit on. My dad has a picture of it. And I did jokes that I had written, and I did impersonations. I did Jimmy Carter.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And I did Arthur from Dudley Moore from Arthur, which I loved.
Yes, me too.
And so, and I did, and then these, I don't even remember what my jokes were. I just remember my knees were really, 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 really shaking.
Oh my God.
And then I performed in front of all these drunk partiers on Westheimer. And,
which is Houston in the 80s.
Yes, right. And then, and I won.
Oh my God.
Of course you had
and I won $100 and then got to sit on the lap of this Derrick Doll. And I was like, sign me up. Yeah. I mean, this is all, and then and then my dad was great. He was like, oh, well, maybe you want to get some acting classes or something. I mean, one of the things one of the privileges I got.
So mine, just to interrupt, was air guitar at a Molly Hatchet concert.
Oh.
$100. I got a bike. And
Are you serious?
Yeah. That was my first like, oh, I like this.
I like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. It was very good for me. And I got lucky in that my parents didn't really, I was the first person to go to college and stuff like this. And I was always a bright kid. And they just always felt like, well, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I didn't have those kind of parents who were like, oh, Richard, don't go into acting. That's a terrible idea. Go into the family business. They were like, I don't know. You know, good luck. So they've always been.
You won the contest.
You did. So I've always been supportive.
You seem to be doing all right. You just keep doing you.
And I think that was a really beautiful.
It's amazing too for sort of the '80s in Houston and the conservative how it
I know
oil and gas industry having such a huge effect and people worried
they were both in. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. But then that's kind of how it all.
Where did you go to college?
Well, I went to college at Stephen F. Austin in Nacogdoches. Which was kind of the perfect program for me. And I've been back several times to teach, and I support that program.
It's such a cool little city.
I love that.
Yeah.
It was a perfect program for me because I didn't have really much experience, really, from the Channel View Theater program.
And you didn't get into the Houston stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what I needed. It also, because I was one of the best actors, right? I was in like 50 plays. I mean, I played roles that I was terrible in, that I should never play again. I played a 70-year-old. I played a 20-year-old. I played all these ages.
They said, I don't know, Richard will do it.
Richard will do it. Because so many of the top programs, and I know this intimately because I've taught at them, so many of the top programs over-specialize so early that what happens is that then a young actor will come in and get a degree in acting.
Yep.
And maybe do 2 plays.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a good point.
Maybe
already
3 plays?
Already pigeonholing themselves.
And then you're like, oh no, they didn't get any time on stage to learn how to listen, to learn how to be bad, to learn how to be good, and also just to learn how to memorize, just learn how to just do it. Everything is laboratory, and not enough performance. So I got really lucky in that it was a small program, and we did a lot of plays, and I was probably in 10 plays a year. Little theater, the big theater, I was in the little singing show. I did everything. It's exactly what I needed. Yeah. And then after that, I went to Rutgers, and that's really what opened the doors for me. That was and I had a legendary acting teacher there, Bill Esper, who,
Bill Esper, yeah.
Bill Esper, who really changed the course of my career. You know, and he was a big fan of mine, and that affected me in a big way. It opened doors for me that I didn't know existed. I didn't even know where the door was. You know, people are like, oh, you can just get their foot in the door. And I was like, could you just tell me where the fuck the door is? I would love to know where the door is.
There's a door?
Yes. But as you know intimately, we have to sort of keep the door hidden because it can't be seen by everybody. Otherwise, you couldn't do things.
I mean, reality TV kind of opened the door for everybody.
But even in casting almost anything, it was like we just can't see everyone that wants to audition for this. So there does have to be a system of you got to find the door. And if you find the door, then that lets you know at least this person is probably going to be in the running, if they're even being seen.
There's some complications with that because then you start narrowing that room of people and it's really hard to get in that room, right?
Yeah,
and,
it is.
And you don't discover, and then you just people get stuck, and you end up. And this was a lot of TV for a long time. It was just the same people.
Totally,
you know what I mean?
Totally.
And so TV was so difficult to break into.
It was until they started making 1,000 TV shows.
Yep.
And then they had to open it up, which was really great.
Well, and you also find like what I have to deal with, and like I was just in Cincinnati doing a movie and a bunch of stuff in Atlanta and New Mexico. It's like you have to open the door because there's just not enough people.
You do. But still, even the people you're opening the door to are seeking it.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by it. It has to be those who are seeking it and finding it. That's what changed for me is once I was able to get in the door. And this is what I'll tell students is that when they actually get the audition, the appointment, you've been invited to the party. Do you know how many people didn't get invited to the party?
I know.
You know.
Yeah.
You're like, gosh, by the time, if we're seeing this many people, it's because we're not seeing this many people. So even getting the audition is a party, and hopefully that changes their mindset about what it means to go in and be seen.
So you must have auditioned hundreds of times.
Yeah, my God, I had one this week.
So how do you feel about the difference between auditioning in person in the room and auditioning with a self-tape?
This is such a good question because I think you and I, and you as well, I think there will be people who hear this who have only auditioned through self-tape. And we three know both worlds. And I think there are benefits and drawbacks to both. I think in many ways, the self-tape has opened the gate, which has been good because people who couldn't have auditioned before now can. It also is the reason I'm living in Austin, is because I can do that now. And my team is like, yeah, you can live wherever you want. Because I was at a place in my career where they're like, the people who want you will find you. They don't care where you live. And so that's been good. I do miss the relationships I had with casting directors because the acting, whenever it can just be framed, you kind of don't know what that person's going to be like 12 hours on set, and how flexible and agile they are as an actor. But they got a really good take that you don't know if it took 6 hours.
Yeah, you don't know what that person's like at all, really.
Exactly. And if it's been coached, and so I miss that. The show I'm doing right now, I had a Zoom call back, and I was happy to have a Zoom call back because it meant that there were 6 or 7 people in the Zoom, I got some adjustments. We just got to talk, and I got to do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a big reason that I booked it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's because there was that human connection. The Long Game, I auditioned from my house here in Austin, and never met Julio until we were in Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right. Yeah.
But I knew it was a good tape.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I felt like I've got a good take on this character and a good idea.
It's a pretty pivotal role in there too. So for him to make that trust and not, to you must have done something right to trust you.
Yeah, it's really nice.
It's a pretty strong role in the movie.
Well, you know what I think also helps is because I have worked so much. Sandra Adair edited Blue Miracle, his movie that has been on Netflix that just was a huge hit.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been in 5 Linklater movies, all done by Sandra.
Mm-hmm.
And so that
she's
helps.
seen the good, the bad, and the ugly.
That's helped. That's really. I think that may have helped.
Yeah.
My real estate value.
Yeah. How did you get in the Linklater camp? And
this is such a good story. I love this story because I had left LA and moved to Austin for the first time, and this was, I guess 2000. I can't remember 6, 7. Oh no, 2008 because my son had just been born. And we'd just gotten over the writer's strike.
That's funny you say that, because when you talk about never knowing what you're going to do because of the compass that leads you or whatever, that is the only time in my life I have ever known and made a decision. Was we were living in LA. Yeah. We had been married 10 years. I was about to be 35, and I was on a downslope.
Yes.
And it was quiet.
It was.
And the writers were threatening to strike. And I was like, Darren, if we're going to have this baby, now's the time to have a baby.
Yep.
And so we got pregnant and we moved back to Austin because I was like, if we're going to have a baby, I want to be in Austin.
Yeah.
And raise the baby in Austin. And we moved and the writers had the strike and it was like perfect timing. That was the only time I've ever been able to like plan something.
Yeah. It was kind of wild. I had been asked, but St. Edward's I was being asked by all these different universities to come in and do like 2-3 day workshops for on-camera acting for their theater programs because I had been, because I'd done a lot of theater, but also done a lot of film. And I'd also done some teaching at some big places. And St. Edward's had asked me to come in. So I'd come in for a weekend and I did do this workshop, and I'd never been on the campus at St. Edward's. And I was like, oh, wow, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
And it was small and intimate and it felt spiritual without being oppressive. I loved the vibe. And I loved Austin. My dad lives out in Spicewood and has for 30 years. And so I'd been to Spicewood a bunch, and Austin was like a place that I knew, but and I always loved it. So I came back home and I said to my wife, I was like, oh man, that was pretty nice. That was pretty nice. And it just wasn't that great where we were. We had a nice apartment.
You were just like, you were like, I went to the store and there was parking.
Well, I know. That's what was so funny. So it was like, yeah, whenever you like, and then you have a driveway and then you like park in it, and then you take your groceries from the driveway, and you don't have to move your car. You actually just leave it in the driveway.
You don't have to worry about street cleaning day.
Yes. So anyway, we made this huge big decision. And we're like, let's move to Austin. And my agents were kind of like through the roof. We're like, have you lost your mind? Because there were no self-tapes at this point.
Yeah, right.
And it was really risky because I had just tested for this thing for ABC. I mean, it probably was like 3 weeks before that I didn't get. And then I just was like, no, I'm just the president of Richard Robichaux Incorporated, and we're relocating. So I did, and then the folks from St. Edward's were like, oh, you live here. Would you teach a camera class, full time? And I was like, sure. And then that turned into a full-time position. That was my first full-time academic position, was at St. Ed's.
Oh, wow.
And I had been here about 3 or 4 months, and a friend of mine was doing a movie here that was being cast by Brock Allen Casting. Mm-hmm. And her name is Carrie Preston. She's now on Elsbeth, which is a great show on CBS that she plays Elsbeth. And she said, oh, Richard, you're in Austin. I'm about to shoot this movie. Brandon Dickerson was doing it. Oh, you should be in it. You should be in it. I'll call them, see if they'll take a look at you. I said, okay, great. So I go in, and Tony Brock, of course, is legendary for her dry wit. And I audition, and she kind of leans out behind the camera and goes, "Where have you been?" I was like, "Oh, I just moved here." She goes, "From where?" I said, "From L.A." "Well, what are you doing here?" You know what I mean? Then she said, "Would you have an agent?"
She's probably smoking a cigarette.
Working on her ponytail.
Yeah, her rat tail.
And she said, and she goes, "Do you have an agent here?" And I said, "No." She goes, "We'll take care of that." And that I didn't get that part, but because of that, she introduced me to Heather Collier. So that's how I met Heather Collier, and then I signed with Heather Collier, and then it was like 3 months later, and I'm in a rehearsal room with Jack Black, Matthew McConaughey, Shirley MacLaine, and me.
Yeah.
And Linkletter. So I thought, okay, well, this worked out.
that worked out.
And
just
that agent,
dandy.
When you were trying to get in that same room for years in LA, which is crazy.
Exactly. And that's really the lesson, is that I think for you really, it's really hard to book features out of LA. Yeah. You can book television out of LA, but booking features out of LA, boy, that's tricky. It's really tricky.
For real.
But and that agent, kept calling me. I love that agent still, but kept calling me like, "How's Austin treating you?"
Yeah.
And then I was able to go, "Well, I'm a number 4 on the cast list.
Yeah.
You should hear the cast."
Yeah.
And then I worked on that for over a month with Rick, and then it was just a few months later, and he said, "Hey, I've got this 12-year project I'm working on, and I'd like to have you in it." And then that was Boyhood, and then.
Yeah.
And
wait a minute, but first
it was like amazing.
That 12-year project, right?
Oh,
You're like, I got a job for 12 years.
I know. I was so excited. I had heard about it, and I was like, "Ooh, I really want to be, really want to be a part of this." And so then I just was, thrilled that he called that. And then he just keeps doing that. Give me a call and say, "Hey, I got a little something in here. If you, what do you think?"
He'll ask you, "Hey, do you think you'd want to be a part of, and you're like, yeah,
I'm available. I'm available. So then he, and then we're good friends. I mean, he's been a good friend to my family and to my kids, and it's been good. So yeah, Hitman will be number 5.
Have you seen Hitman?
Yeah, it's spectacular.
I can't wait to see it.
It is spectacular.
I cannot wait to see it.
It's spectacular. So good. And Glenn Powell, I have a little cameo, but it's really funny because it's Glenn is in this wild costume. You wait till you see it. I can't give it away, but he's in this wild costume. And so during that scene, it's just me and him in this scene. I got to say, Glenn, I'm the cute one in this scene. That'll be the only time I can ever say that. He's so good looking. It's like terrifying to like come in contact with it in person.
In person.
Like, oh, that's what God was thinking.
Yeah.
It's like, this was the idea. And then due to like different things and variations, they also come out like this sometimes.
Yeah.
But so I'm the cute one in that scene. You'll recognize me. You'll be like, "Oh, look, he's the cute one."
Oh,
it's funny though.
That sure was fun.
Yeah, that was really great. How cool! And I play golf, and I'm like, if you can see me, this is my body. So I never thought I was going to be in a sports movie, unless I was a sports agent.
Yeah,
right. And so I was
or a writer. I
guess
he's a writer.
Yes, I love sports movies. I'm a big baseball fan. I'm a big golf fan because I've played golf since I was 11.
Yeah.
So then to be like, oh, not only are you going to be a sports movie, it's a golf movie. It's a golf movie that's based on a true story in Texas that is incredibly inspirational.
Yeah.
And is going to be masterfully done by Julio Quintana and this team and Mucho Mas.
Yeah.
And then you're going to go play golf in Colombia for a month.
It's like tailor-made for you.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
Happened. I mean, I didn't know that was on my list of things to do, but there was a moment in Colombia
you just
where
keep calling that agent going, "Hey, let me tell you this story."
I know. Well, this is from my LA. I got that from my LA office. Actually, even though we were shooting here.
Yeah.
But and my managers and agents are all in LA, but I'm still with Heather here.
Oh, you are.
And but yeah, I was in Colombia on this mountaintop, like you remember.
Yeah.
You kind of can't explain it to people.
No.
It's like the Alps, but in the jungle. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
The sky is so blue. I'm playing golf with Dennis Quaid and Javier Chapa, who was the executive producer. in Colombia, I just thought,
How did this happen?
That's an astronaut moment,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
From being at the San Jacinto Mall
in
Baytown at the Spencer's Gifts or whatever, going to the movies or going to Sam Goody's to get a record or a videotape, to being like, what?
Yeah.
You little shit. How'd
For
you
real.
pull this off?
Like,
it's
for real.
fancy.
It is fancy. Pretty
that was
fancy.
my first time getting to leave the country and film.
Oh, that's such a good
And that
feeling.
is so what I had always wanted to do.
Yes. Oh, that's
And,
a good one.
Like, I didn't care if I had my one line or not. I
Yes.
was like, I get to spend a week in Colombia.
You were so cool too. It's always really tricky when you don't know who's going to be. If you do have a spouse or you have a partner in a movie, and of course you never met them before, and then it was such a relief that whenever you were there, then I was like, oh, you're so awesome.
Oh,
right. That you didn't go, I have to suffer this person.
Oh, God, no.
You know, it was a real.
Oh,
that was
God,
really
no.
nice. And then you're a great actor. You're beautiful. I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. I love this.
I'm just there to make it easy. We're in Colombia.
Yeah,
I'm
we were
like,
having
let's
fun.
just enjoy it. It was so
good.
epic.
It was good.
Like
So spectacular.
beautiful,
So beautiful.
and amazing food, and what an
yeah,
amazing crew out
food.
there.
Oh, I know, they were good.
so wonderful.
Everybody was good.
It was really
This is
cool.
brought to you by the travel of
Colombia.
Film Colombia.
Yes, yes. I was. I do have a very good Colombia story, which was this. Which this may not be appropriate for all children, but one of the Colombian producers that was there, the boys were all going to go to Medellin for the weekend because they had some days off, and he was like, "Oh, Richard, you should go to Medellin. You know, it'd be nice. It's really nice. Have you been to Medellin?" I was like, "Oh no, I'll probably stay here. I'm gonna go to the Botero Museum or whatever." And there's been, "Oh no, party is very good in Medellin. You should see this." I was like, "I don't know." He's like, "Oh well, you married?"
Yeah.
I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Happy?"
Oh.
And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Don't go to Medellin." I was like, yeah, that's probably good for me. Maybe not to go to Medellin.
Did you go to the Botero Museum?
I did go to the Botero
We
Museum,
did
which was
too.
spectacular.
Michael and I went too. It was
And
amazing.
That museum is so amazing. What's radical is that everywhere I work, I go to museums. And I go to the same museums. I'm in LA. Just last week, I was at the Getty and the Norton Simon, even though I've been to them a million times. Anytime I'm just out of town,
That's what I do all
I'm
the
always
time
at a
too,
museum.
yeah.
I'm always at a museum because you got to fill up. So I have never been to a museum where there's the painting and then there's a open door out to the courtyard.
That's true, right?
It was just like open air.
That's right.
And I thought, oh my God, there's all these paintings in here. And the door was just open. I mean, talk about having the door open, right?
Yeah.
And access.
Yeah.
And it was sort of spectacular, very moving.
Yeah, it
just
was.
very moving to be. I just,
And then you,
that
then you
was
said,
pretty
sponsored
spectacular.
by the Escobar Foundation.
Yes,
It's like no one's taking anything.
Yes, exactly. It was like, it'll be fine. It was pretty spectacular. It was
Yeah.
pretty spectacular. The work in that museum was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's a good one.
So what's next for you? What's going on?
I am doing, well, the big new thing was that this year, Texas State offered me a full professor in the acting program.
Oh,
So
really?
I am teaching at Texas State in the BFA acting program and helping to recruit and working with their new film department. The new film department at Texas State is, I think, just really, really exciting. Johnny McAllister and Annie Silverstein.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some serious, and Brian Poiser. And I mean, these are really serious filmmakers.
We just did a film with Brian. We
Yeah.
had Brian on
We
here.
shot it.
So great. I mean, Texas State is doing some exciting stuff, and their acting program is very good. And I think it's about to get a lot better. We just have so many great plans. We're recruiting all over the country. It's affordable. It's right here in Central Texas. So I'm very proud to be working with them. And one of my deals with them was, well, I have to still be able to work. And they really agreed with that. They were like, no, that's why we want you. We want you because you work. And that's what the students really want. And this new job I'm doing really tested that theory. Because
Yeah.
I'm flying back and forth to LA.
Yeah.
Is it Big Shots?
No, that got canceled. This is a new series for Hulu, which is not, the show's been announced. I haven't been announced yet. I'll be announced in a couple weeks. But it's a new show for Hulu, and it is spectacular. It is a spectacular TV show. It's massive. It's the kind of thing that just last week, we were in this massive military blimp hangar in an old military base in Southern California. And there were probably 15 cranes inside the I mean, we had 300 background. It's so huge, the scope. It's Dan
Tom
Fogelman.
Cruise in it?
Yeah, Dan Fogelman is the showrunner and writer who did This Is Us and he wrote Cars.
This is a total astronaut moment.
He's this is a total astronaut moment. Working with him in this cast, and Sterling K. Brown is the lead.
Wow.
And so that show is going to be great. I'm very excited about that show, but I'm having to go back and forth. But so I shoot Friday. However, I'm teaching tomorrow. I'll teach 2 classes tomorrow, and then I race to the airport and I fly out, and then I'll shoot on Friday.
American Airlines, baby.
It is.
What, straight shot.
Yes, I'll be there.
Yeah. Because I used to have to. I live in Pasadena.
That's my line.
It'd take me 3 hours from Pasadena to Santa Monica. I can now fly to LAX at 6. I land at 7.
Yes.
Get to my office, and when I had an office in LA.
Yes.
And it would beat the time that it took me to commute from Pasadena.
I know.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is.
Yeah.
And so I just go whoop, and I'll be there, and then I'll be back
and
Saturday.
And then I would come back same day, same night.
Yeah. Well, this is my hope. Is like I shoot. I only have 1 scene on Friday, so I may even be able to fly out Friday.
Yeah.
So I don't even, I'm just like, oh, maybe.
I mean, if you're on a show, it's great too because you got a coordinator and they're getting everything.
Yeah, they really help work everything out, and they've been very generous. Have been like, oh, yeah, they know I want to stay here with my family, and so they're like, okay, well, we can make this work, and I'm a character actor, so Sterling is there every day. Obviously,
right.
I'm there, 1 or 2 days an episode.
Right.
I kind of come in, do my yada yada yada,
which is a great job. Which is a great. Not have to carry it, and you just come in, you do your thing. I always said I wanted to be like the third cop.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it was like that's. I mean, I love it, and I have a little point of view in this, and it's a sprawling show. It's going to be so good.
Yeah,
that's going to be so good. Thank you so much. I'm excited about it. And that was the first booking. It was my second audition after the strike, and my first booking in a year.
Oh, wow.
In a year. And that's whenever I directed, Zach asked me to direct The Thin Place during the strike. So it worked out perfectly. Yeah. So I was able to work creatively during the strike, at least. And it was the first time I had been able to really do theater because I knew I wouldn't have to leave town. And so I got to direct that play, which was really beautiful. But
strong North Compass happened.
So it was, it really was. It was, and it was like, oh, and for me to book that, it was like going whale fishing. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I was like, oh, okay, great. The kid's back. The kid's back. We're back. Okay. So we're back. We're going to be okay. We're going to be okay.
That other voice. You shut up.
Yes. I mean, you really have to. You have to. Oh, it's like, woof.
I told you.
I told you I was fancy. Yeah. So my main job really is like as I teach,
trust, man. That's my main job. Is in this industry, it's just trusting that the phone.
It is faith. It is an act of faith, and it takes an enormous ego to do this job, and it takes an enormous amount of humility to work this job.
Yep.
And that is what is so what people don't understand.
When people ask me my greatest success, I'm like, I'm still in it.
Oh, I agree. My head's above water. I mean, it's like, holy cow, look at me go. I mean, it is
such a hard industry to stay in.
It is incredible. I mean, and longevity is the goal. I mean, this became very clear to me in my probably late 30s, which was, and this was part of moving to Austin in the first place. And because I was really having to ask myself, well, what is success going to be like? Because I remember, I'd had films at Sundance, I'd worked at Juilliard. Then my mom would be like, oh, okay, that's good. Okay, that's good. Not really say anything. And then I booked All My Children. And she was like, oh my God.
Right.
She was like,
you're like,
oh, baby.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Which I only did for money. And I was like, I hope nobody ever sees it. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I realized, I'm still trying to impress this other version of myself.
Yeah.
And this younger version of myself. And that has a different version of success. And we all have this because the civilian world knows what we do so well.
Yeah.
They don't do that with most industries. A weekend gross is national news.
Yeah.
That's so they really feel like they know what we're doing. And
that's funny.
I realized
I say that too, civilian world.
Yeah, I realized that success for me was going to be this. I really wanted my work to be respected by those whose work I respected.
Yeah.
Because I had been recognized in airports and it had been nice. Nobody ever knows my name, but somebody would be like,
You're that guy.
You're in that movie. You're that guy, right? And it, but
which is a good place to be.
It is it is a
yeah.
very nice place to be. But what happens is that it's very fleeting. It's like, oh, that's so nice of you, thank you, and then it kind of disappears, and you realize, oh, success is not being famous to strangers.
Yeah.
That, for me as an actor, success is that you two respect me. Success is that Linkletter respects
me. A director
me.
calls you and says, "Hey, I saw you in this film
Is that
nobody saw,
yes,
and you did such a great job."
Julio goes, "I respect your work," and I go, "Oh God, I respect your work." That's when I feel successful.
Yeah.
Is whenever that happens.
I said that to the director when we had a movie come out, and I go, "Man, no one saw it," and he goes, "But the right people saw it."
Oh yeah, my agents talk about this all the time. My manager especially, he was like, "Well, this Hulu show, he was happy. He was like, oh, well, the right eyes will be on this show."
Yeah,
it was just like sort of terrible, but he was like, "Yeah, the right eyes will be on this show," and that lets you know. The students I will talk about. Where I was like, "This is, if you go to a cocktail party, and you say you're an actor or you're in the business." Because people feel like they intuit, they know it well because it's in their house, they'll say, "What have you been in? What do I know from you? What have you done? What have you done?" Which would never, if I was a dentist at a cocktail party, no one would go, "So do you do Obama's teeth?"
Yeah.
I'd be like,
no,
well, do you do Clooney's teeth?
Yeah.
It's like, no, so you're like a local dentist?
Yeah.
Oh, you do local dentistry.
Yeah.
Oh, you like a community dentist.
Yeah.
Well, that's neat. Well, we need more of you. Good for you. So never wanted to be a real dentist. Like never wanted to move to Beverly Hills and do the big teeth. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so...
You're automatically just offensive and pissed off and feel small.
Exactly.
It's so
no matter
judgy.
what. There was on that flight, this is years ago.
It's like you're expected to like hand out your resume.
I know.
For
on
judgment.
On that flight, this was several years ago. I remember there was a guy getting very drunk on the opposite aisle of me. And he turned to me about mid-flight and he goes, "You in the film business?" And I don't know. I just said yes. And I said, "Oh, yes." And he goes, "Well, I don't recognize you."
Oh, God.
You just did, asshole.
Yeah.
He goes, "I don't recognize you." And I go, "I don't recognize you either."
Yeah.
And then I went back to reading. The woman next to me was like, "Ay, ay, ay." But it was so random. Like,
so rude.
His ability to be like, just kind of poke.
Yeah.
Be like, and what it is, I think, is that there's I was in first class, and there was almost like he's almost like, "Damn you for getting to do what you love and you get to ride in first class because I fucking work at the bank."
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like I'm mad at you.
I remember
for getting to do your dream, right?
You look like you have fun.
I remember
making
yelling at somebody
and I don't.
drunk and being like, when they did that to me and being like, "You know how much fucking rejection and how hard I've worked to get the car that I have to be able to do this. Just you don't even know who I am, but be able to, this is what I do for a living. You have no idea what I've gone through to get." And it's like, fuck you. What do you do?
Oh, I know. It's
so rude.
Yeah, no, and it comes from, it is like how dare you get to do what you wanted?
Yeah. How dare you think you can dream?
Yeah. And it's so my. Anytime the Emmys are happening or the Academy Awards are happening, I have an assignment for all of my students. And it's this. And I say, okay, I want you to get some friends and I want you to go, you'll watch. And I want you to get a little plate, get some cheese and some nuts and some bread and some popcorn, maybe get a little bubbly, something, a little drink. And I said, I want you to dress up a little bit. And I was like, and then during the intermission, like during the commercials, each of you will have to stand up and give your acceptance speech to all your friends. And they're like, "What?" And I was like, because if you cannot pretend to win an Emmy in the privacy of your own imagination, you will never win an Emmy. I mean, we are so programmed to, like, when you think about a film that you're doing, or whatever, I think this film might really go. And then there's that voice that says, like, don't think like that. Don't think that. You're like, God, can I not, even in the privacy of my own imagination, that civilian world is like poking at you saying, like, don't think you can win that. Don't think that can happen. And that's a battle. Yeah. That is a battle. I think, I think that's the daydreaming where I'm like, hey, daydream. Daydream. Just for a second.
I've talked about this with auditioning. I used to beat the crap out of myself because I wanted to be in control.
Yeah.
I want to be in control. You can't say I suck because I'm gonna tell you I suck way worse.
Yes.
So here we are. Richard Robichaux says dream.
I know.
We've learned that he's an astronaut.
Your
He's
dreams.
fancy.
He's fancy.
Yep, and he's an astronaut.
And it's okay to dream your dream.
And kicking ass.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
So good.
Thank you for doing all that you do, because you not only do you do what you do, but you give back. You teach, and you're helping the next generation, and you're putting positivity out there, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
Thank you so much. I think my big job as a teacher is to say that it is possible, because they have so many people saying that it's impossible, and it's actually not, because I turn on the television every night and there are people doing it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's clearly possible.
Yeah.
And acting has been such a good friend to me that it has given me an incredible life, and not just financially, because it's financially been good, and it's also financially been very hard. You know, I've had good days and bad days, but it's just been a good friend to me. I was like, oh, what a great companion to have this my whole life.
Yeah.
And so I'm always supportive. When I bring in guests, if I bring you in or I bring you in to come teach at a class, I always tell them beforehand, I was like, don't tell them how hard the business is. They've got an aunt and uncle that tells them that all the time.
Yeah.
Their mom and dad tell them that all the time.
Yeah.
Tell them how you got to the chair that you're in.
Yeah.
And then maybe how they can get from their chair to your chair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they don't need that sort of, the business is tough.
Right.
Like that, they've got their own inner voice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for doing all
thank
that
you for
you're
having
doing,
me.
and thank you for
supporting
coming.
the long game.
The long game this
Yes.
Friday.
Yes, and thank you. I'm so glad that we met.
I am too. I am so glad that we met.
Awesome.
It's been great having you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Evan.
Our show today was recorded in studio by the good folks at Record ATX. Check them out at recordatx.com. Our theme music is produced by Jonathan Price. You can check out some of the sounds he makes with his project, The Mid-Cities, on Spotify. Follow, subscribe, and smash that like button if you see one. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you guys next time.